Hi, Adele Bates, Behaviour and Education Specialist. For those of you who have seen my website, you'll see my vision statement at the start. It says, "My vision of education is one in which all differences are included and welcome. Education is flexible, relevant, and leads towards positive social change." It's a wonderful, grandiose statement that took me a while to come up with, thanks to my brother, he helped. Thanks, Adam. But sometimes I'm really challenged to walk that talk. And I do realise it is easy to kind of put that on a shiny website and make it look really great. But I feel it is also important that the daily practice that I'm doing, both in the classroom, as a leader in education, and in all the work that I share, I am sticking to that as well. This vlog shares a story in which I was challenged with this, and it was looking at my place of privilege and my position as an ally to minority groups. Now, most of the time, I feel myself as a privileged person, and for a lot of instances, I'm in the majority. I'm a white, middle-class woman in the UK, and there are a lot of opportunities and privileges that come with that. In this particular instance, that was very much the situation I was in. It's happened a few times. I've been booked for a conference, and I will ask about the representation of people of colour on the presentation list. And it just so happened this one time I forgot to do that. So afterwards, I'd come off the phone with the organiser, I'd asserted my fee and the content that I was going to cover, and put the phone down and remembered, I didn't ask that question. And I thought, do I need to bother? Is it that important? And then something kind of strange started to happen, and I started to think, well, hang on a minute. They've already booked me now without me asking that question. And if I ask that question about representation of people of colour on the programme, what if they think I'm a job's worth? What if they wouldn't want to work with me if they knew I was the kind of person who was going to ask that kind of question? Or, and this is a really interesting one, what if their response is, actually, we don't have any people of colour on our programme, but if you want to give up your place for a person of colour, you can do that. What would I do in that situation? So while sitting with those questions, I thought, okay, well, what can I do right now while I'm working out what I am actually willing to do, how far I am willing to go? I just dropped the organiser an email and asked the question about the representation of people of colour on the programme. And up to this point, we'd had a quite quick fire response back and forwards about various things over email. And so when it took 2 days for the person to reply, it seemed quite a long time in context, which just did more to fuel this kind of insecurity that had built up inside me about even bringing this issue up. And then it got me thinking, I'm feeling all these things and going through all this kind of inner turmoil about it, even though I'm the one in a position of privilege. And so what must it be like for my colleagues who are people of colour who can't even not have that conversation? Sometimes for my colleagues of people of colour, just even standing in a room and being a leader and influencing others in education is a political statement in itself, and they can't turn that off. You know, it was my choice to ask that question. I could choose not to if I didn't feel like it. That's not the case for those colleagues I've got. And I know what that's like. Sometimes just by mentioning the name of the person who's my partner, who is a woman, I know that becomes a political statement, when really I just want to, mean that she hasn't done the washing up or whatever. But just by the nature of the fact that I'm not in a heterosexual relationship, that becomes a political statement in itself. And it also got me thinking about a lot of the discussions I saw over EduTwitter over the summer, which was a lot about representation and people of influence and people in positions of privilege creating a voice and a platform for minority groups. And I saw a lot of things that really, really disheartened me, especially coming from teachers. And a lot of what I was reading did not fit in with my vision of education, in which all differences are included and welcomed, and education is flexible and relevant so that it leads towards positive social change. Now, in this particular instance, the organiser got back to me and said, actually, great, is there anyone you can recommend? And it was at that point I suddenly realised that on this particular topic, there wasn't. And so I then spent an hour and a half trying to research and remember people that I'd met, or friends of friends, or people via Twitter who I could recommend as people of colour who could speak on this particular topic. And again, that was interesting because I feel it's important that we do that extra work in order for equality to come about. It's kind of the same argument around looking at positive discrimination, that we do need to give opportunities sometimes to minority groups more so than the majority groups. And I mean, this is something I've debated with my dad before. In itself, that feels unequal. But until we are all equal, then we are going to have to keep doing more work or creating more opportunities or more platforms for the people in the minority places. And I felt that was actually an important thing for me to do. As I said, walk my talk of my vision for education. And it's really just made me think about the importance of allyship and what it actually means. I think it's one of those areas that it's very tempting to say I agree with and I am an ally, but actually how far do we go? And when it gets awkward, do we keep going? As the minority group that I tend to fall into with the LGBT community, I've seen it myself when colleagues, friends are very supportive of me and my partner, etc., but then don't necessarily perhaps take that into the classroom, in the sense of they're not going to mention, let's say, a scientist and the fact that they're not heterosexual. They would feel that would be too much and that wouldn't be part of their remit, for example, as a science teacher. So I've experienced it from that side, and then being on the other side, I feel the importance of doing that. So I'd be really interested to know what are you doing as an ally for, sorry, I had a fly in my hand, for minority groups, and how far do we go, and how far do we actually inconvenience ourselves? I've led on PSHE in some schools before and spent, I know, a lot of extra time ensuring that my resources represent visually lots of different types of people, and that does take extra work. Going on those search engines and doing that takes longer, and people in education don't have much time. How far do we put ourselves out to make the kind of equal, all-welcoming, encompassing education that our pupils deserve? I'd love to know how you're getting on. Thank you.